Hello Leo listeners, Cara here from leolistening.com, helping bookworms and vocab nerds stop reading their favourite films and start watching them without the subtitles. So last week I started my series on watching the film Never Let Me Go without the subtitles. That's our ultimate goal. Last time we talked a bit about just feeling good about watching the film, even if you have to watch it initially with subtitles. It's not your fault because, I likened watching a film to being kicked out of a helicopter in the middle of nowhere and trying to find your way back to civilization. So, movie dialogue is just tough. It's very different to when you're watching a TV series and pretty much each week what's going to happen. You're familiar with the characters, the way they speak, etc. A film is very different to that, and it's okay. It's okay for it to be hard, but there's ways to fix that. So we're going to talk in a bit more detail about actual concrete ways to fix the problem this week. And I just want to start off by inviting you again to my Subtitle Freedom Club on Facebook. That's where we're having discussions about the book and film, and book and film combinations in general, and how to enjoy films more without the subtitles by reading books, plays, etc. before you watch the film. So today we're focusing on why just listening is not a solution to understanding Never Let Me Go, or any film or anything without the subtitles. So if you want to just listen to films all day long and then hope that one day the magic passive listening fairies will make you understand what you're hearing, then go find another channel, go find another blog, go find some story about somebody who magically understood a language after doing loads of just passive listening, okay? Right, for other people who have a more realistic vision of how we actually understand films and spoken English in general, thank you. I'm glad you're here and I can't wait to actually help you. Now, if I had €1 for every time anyone ever said to me, and I get this all the time, oh, I just need more practice and then I'll understand. Well, I wouldn't be a millionaire, but I would have quite a lot of spare cash. So, just practicing, just listening, whatever, you can do it. But I mean, Trisha admitted in her blog post on books that it took her a good 10 years to really get comfortable with watching French TV. She talked as well about, not in that article, but she told me about her husband's situation, and it's taken him 15 years to stop watching movies or series in English without the subtitles because he's French and he's lived in the US and his wife is a native speaker of English. So if you've got a spare decade, then, go ahead. I wish you all the best. But, it's tough. I mean, maybe some people are very, very good at picking things up with their ears. Some people seem to have that ability. But, I meet people and I interact with people who have very high levels of productive English. So this makes you a bit unusual because most people say things like, oh, I understand everything, blah, 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 but I can't speak. I know people who can speak perfectly well or write like really amazing English, but they can't understand some of the things they hear. So it's really frustrating, especially when the assumption is, oh, well, your listening will always be ahead of your other skills. Not always, that can change as you progress, and it's totally normal as well to struggle the most with the simplest, most basic words, and that's what can be very frustrating, but it's totally normal. Okay, so we talked about, watching a film, it's like being thrown into the wilderness, right? We know that it's difficult. Now, in terms of just listening as a strategy, so there are lots of problems with this, just a few of them. So the first thing is you don't actually know what you're struggling with. So if you're just listening and you're like, oh, well, I only caught 50% or whatever, the thing is you haven't taken the time to identify what the problem really is. So if you don't know what your problem is, how can you fix it? Just listening to entire 2-hour films is very time consuming and tiring. We mentioned that last week. I said that it's absolutely fine to put the subtitles on, but of course that demands an extra effort from you because you're sort of reading and trying to watch the film at the same time, and it's tough. And of course, just listening, yes, of course it can work. Of course it has its place. You know, I don't make my students only do kind of more detailed listening work. There is obviously a place for just listening, the passive listening and everything. But if it's the only strategy you use, then it's going to take a very, very long time, as I've already mentioned. Now, a big problem with films as well is, how do you get the repetition? Like, who watches a film and then goes, oh, well, I'm going to watch that again straight away? Or even like week to week, you're not going to be like, oh, you know, even I have films that I love, but I don't watch them every week. I mean, you'd have to be a really huge fan of the film to watch it that often. You might pick particular scenes that make you laugh to watch again. Maybe you can find them on YouTube, and you know, you like watching those over and over again. But so it means that you can't really get the exposure that you need through just passive listening, because you're not listening multiple times. It's a bit different with TV series because they're shorter. You might want to watch your favorite episode over and over, and in any case, from week to week, you're hearing, you know, the same characters, the same voices, the same topics, the same context. So it's a bit easier. But with films, I really don't understand how that works. You watch one film and then you move on to the next one. I mean, you could pick films with the same actors. I've recommended that as a strategy before. But passive listening by watching lots and lots of films, I think it's going to take an awfully long time to see any progress. So here's what you should be doing instead of just listening or like rewatching your favorite film like 10 times a day. So the two things that you need to do is, anytime you listen to absolutely anything, I mean, it could be, anything you can listen to. So a TED Talk, a presentation, a podcast, whatever. The first thing to do is diagnose the problem you're having, and the second thing is to fix the problem. So here we're going to focus on how you actually diagnose the problem, because that's the first step. So what I recommend doing is the following. So you're going to pick a scene with the lines that you found hard to catch. Just focus on one scene. Don't go through the whole film. You're going to choose then some lines that were difficult within the scene. So you need something you can hold in your memory. So you only really want, 5, 10, 15 seconds. Don't make it too long. Don't try to transcribe 3 minutes in one go. Okay, you're going to play the line and then write what you hear. Don't do this too many times. Do it maybe 3 to 5 times maximum. Okay, there's kind of a limit to how many times you can repeat it without going crazy. Then you want to compare with the subtitles or transcript or whatever written material you have. It's really key to have something written to compare what you write with what was actually said. Then what you're going to do is you're going to compare what you wrote, and you're going to notice what you missed or you misheard or you couldn't catch at all. And that way you'll know what's actually happening. Okay, so fixing the problem then. This is the second part. Now, how you're going to fix the problem is going to depend on the problem. So I've identified 3 things that usually come up for films as problems. So the first one is the thing that you missed. It was some kind of like cultural reference, a reference to maybe a book or another film or a person, I don't know, a person from history, or some kind of issue as well to do with the plot. Maybe they're mentioning something that happened previously in the film. If it's that kind of issue, then what you can do is go and double check on Wikipedia, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. Go check the section in the book, something like this. Ask a native speaker if it's really something to do with like American or British culture. For that kind of problem, it's kind of like a reference issue. You have to go and check it out, what it means to understand it. Okay, now the second problem, it could be that you missed or you misheard or had some issue because you in the line that was that the actor spoke, there was a new word or a group of new words. Now, obviously, this happens. This is not the core of all the problems to do with listening comprehension, but obviously, yes, new words can be an issue. So what you can do then, you look at the subtitles and you try to guess the meaning from context, if you can. And then also you can ask yourself, is the word really crucial or not to understanding the scene? Because just because there's new words, it doesn't mean you won't understand, and it doesn't mean you actually need them to know what's going on. So don't get too upset or worried about new words. They're often not as big a deal as you think. Now, the third potential problem, and for me this one is the key, and this explains a lot of issues, is that you didn't hear or you misheard a word or several words that you already know due to the way they sound in fast speech, because of links between words or sounds and words that disappear, and things like this. So for fixing that problem, what you're going to do, and you can do something really, really practical, which is to find more examples of the issue, the link, the disappearing word or sound, and train yourself to catch them. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in my next video, where I'm going to walk you through some typical difficulties in a dialogue, how to fix them. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for that. And in the meantime, do hop over to the Subtitle Freedom Club to discuss Never Let Me Go, both the book and the film. All right, thanks. See you next time.